Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Ray, and tonight I've got a full house with me. Welcome tonight, Mac
Good evening.
and Gio.
What is good, everyone?
On today's podcast, we're going to be reviewing the first fifth of the Premier League, giving you our predictions on what could happen for the rest of the season. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social media, both on X and Instagram. Our handle is at @house_of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. And lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. All right, so the first category that we're going to go over today, Mac, I'm going to toss it to you first. Dark horse team to watch. And now, this is the next best team outside of the Big Six that you're going to be keeping an eye out for the rest of the season. Maybe your second favorite team to watch. Give it to us, Mac.
So I don't know necessarily. Again, I did highlight this category. I don't know if they're necessarily my second favorite team to watch, but I think by the end of the season, they're going to be kind of our, if we kind of use a comparison to the last couple of seasons, our new Brighton. And I think that's going to be speaking to more so like the Graham Potter era at Brighton. And that for me is Brentford. Here's the reason why. As of right now, if you kind of look at the recent results, the teams that they've lost to thus far in the Premier League are Manchester United, I think Liverpool, as well as Tottenham, if I remember correctly. So the teams that they have lost to, it's expected. Whereas every game that they should compete and win against, they have won, which now sits them around the middle of the table. And I think by the end of the season, if this team is in 9th, 10th place, that's a huge success for a team that's recently come up from the championship, only a couple seasons in. What the team Thomas Frank has really built from bottom to top, from goalkeeper to strikers, with losing their star player that everyone was seeking after in Ivan Toney over the summer. You probably got less money for him than you would have wanted and didn't even have necessarily the time to spend it. And this team right now is built around Mbomo, Iwisa, and consistently scoring in the first 30 seconds of every match that they play. So for me, if you want excitement, if you want in terms of a team that's progressing well, which is what I always look for, that's kind of slowly putting themselves further and further higher at the table. In addition, a manager that's on the watch. If there is I don't necessarily enjoy the calls necessarily for him to be able to be moved to, let's say, if a position opens up at Tottenham or at Manchester United, for him to be the manager there. I would love to see him maybe in a tier just below that potentially, but your argument could be those are teams that are a tier below the top teams, which can fair to that. I think that might be too much of a little bit jump for him at the moment. So everything about the club right now in terms of how they play, who they play, absolutely love it. Also, I always keep my eyes on them. If one of the bigger teams aren't playing, the first game I want to go out and see is what's happening with Brentford, because I have high expectations for them this season and what they could do in the Premier League.
Yeah, I do, of course, want to mention that even they're missing, of course, they're probably the best player in their history, Ivan Toney. No disrespect to Brentford, I'm not sure. I'm not too aware of their history, but in the Premier League era, of course, Ivan Toney was a huge focal point for them, and they're missing him. Gio, of course, it's so surprising that they're doing so well. And a period where last season I kind of tipped into maybe want to be one of those relegation danger teams. They're of course flying, and 13 goals for, 13 goals against. I believe if I'm reading it correctly, a very entertaining team because they score quite early, but they are susceptible as well to get scored on it. Maybe I'll toss it to you for your thoughts, Gio, whether you have any other thoughts on Brentford, and also to give us your team to watch regarding the dark horse category.
No, I think Brentford's a great shout. They're getting results. Again, Thomas Frank has been on this project for quite some time now. Obviously, I think he was quite okay with losing Ivan Toney because, it's been in the talks for so long. It was a matter of just, metaphorically, kind of ripping the bandage off and kind of turning a new page, as some would say. But I think, I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of a bias and maybe it's a bit of a nostalgia thing, but my team to watch, and kind of like how Mac is in terms of, if their game is on and say Man U isn't playing, I'm kind of tuning in. I kind of really want to tune in and see what they do. It's actually Leicester City, because I just love the fact that obviously they came back They came back into the Prem, and they're just a pest to play. I feel like they're a pest to play. I don't think where they're sitting right now is obviously, kind of depictive of how good and how good they can be or how effective they can play. Because you have savvy vets on that team. You have, younger guys that are just getting, their feet wet in the Premier League. So, a lot of teams count them out, and that, we've seen across, the years of watching the Premier League is when teams get counted out, it's when these teams really creep up on you. And maybe it's also because I don't know how many years Jamie Vardy has left. How many more cans of Red Bull does he have in him? How many pack of cigarettes does he have left in him? So, it's nice to see obviously his highs and obviously his journey and him coming back to the Prem. How many more years does he have left? So I'm just enjoying the ride while it lasts.
Yeah, of course. One of the fairy tales in the Premier League and Leicester, one for sure, a team to definitely watch, regardless of where they're doing, how they're doing in the league, where they're positioned. You just know that there could be some magic happening at that stadium. Mac, any thoughts before I can give you guys my dark horse team?
No, they also have our. I think if we were to ask for like maybe a cult hero or a mascot of our podcast, they also have Jordan Ayew, which is always nice. So it's he's guaranteed to get some minutes at some point. Will he score? Definitely not, but he'll get minutes.
That's absolutely right. So in that case, I will give you guys my dark horse team, which I'm not sure if you guys can consider a dark horse team. I just think because they're out of the top six traditionally, I think this can put them into a dark horse team to maybe make the top six this season, and that's actually Fulham. Maybe recency bias, how well they played against Man City, even though they did end up losing. This team that Marco Silva has built is actually a pretty decent team. You have, of course, the likes of Emil Smith Rowe, who recently joined. I was very surprised. I totally missed the signing of Sandy Berge from I think it might have been Sheffield from last season. I definitely had Burnley. My apologies. He's going to be a solid pickup in midfield to replace Paulinho, and of course you have Adama Traore, who, if he can figure out how to score and finish those chances, will definitely be a threat against the big teams. But even then, Rodrigo Muniz finished the season quite well last season. And of course, they have the likes of Harry Wilson and Reece Nelson, who are fringe players coming from Liverpool and Arsenal, but have the quality when called upon to deliver the goods. And of course, they have Raul Jimenez, their top goal scorer so far. And of course, Mac knows how I feel about Raul Jimenez. I just think that they do have depth this year, and they're going to be, at the very least, a hard team for a lot of teams to try to go and get all 3 points against. And that's all really they can sort of, at the bare minimum, set the standard, and then hopefully pick up good results from there. I'm gonna toss to you, Gio. Any thoughts on Fulham, and or give us your notable match shit that you think will happen this season?
I like Fulham. Obviously, Andres Pereira. Love that he hits the Sui. I know Mac hates it, which makes me love it even more. But honestly, every season we kind of get one of these teams. Last year, obviously, it was Villa. Now Fulham is really just kind of creeping their way up, which we love to see, because that's what's so great about the Prem, is you just don't know what team is really going to come out and shock you. In terms of mad shit is Manchester United not finishing within the top 7. I think it's going to be a tough year. I don't think they're going to finish within the top 7. So they don't even make my top 6. I know we're going to get into it, but they're not making it into the top 6. And it's going to be a long summer for this club. Apart from that, though, I think Chelsea do make it within the top 5. And it's going to be a huge turnaround, and they're going to, fans are going to say, "Oh, we're back. You're not really back. This is where you should be with all that money you spent." But I think Chelsea will kind of shock the world based on what they did last year.
Yeah, Gio, that's a great shout because I also did not have Man U finishing in the top six, and probably just outside of that area. Maybe because I did have that as well, and based off of Mac's reaction there, maybe he also didn't have them in the top six. So I can definitely see where you're coming from. And I guess similar to that vein, I feel like for me personally, my notable match it is in line with a team not doing quite so well, and that's a team that started in red hot streak. Aston Villa, I think they might falter as the season goes on. They have the Champions League to deal with this season, and even though they started really hot in the first 7 games of the Premier League and a couple of games in the Champions League, with the congestion from all these fixtures, I feel like they're gonna fall off and drop in form, especially after the November international break, heading into the Christmas season when all the games pile up. I just think even though you have John Duran and Ollie Watkins fighting for one position, it's great for them that right now they're both firing both scoring goals. I feel like though there is going to be a period of time, Mac, that both of these players are going to struggle for goals, and I don't necessarily know where else the goals would come from them, because I know that they rely heavily on Ollie Watkins. If him and John Duran, maybe an injury here and there to one of the players, lack of form, it's going to be an interesting way for me to see how Emery turns this around. What is your notable match it to occur for the rest of the season?
There were a couple phases of this. I'll be honest with you in terms of like what is actually match it. Like first one was that both Ange Postecoglou and Erik ten Hag would get fired this season. Is that really mad? No, I don't think so. I win it by the start of next season. Manchester United might have 3 different managers. So Ten Hag probably hired Ruud van Nistelrooy. He doesn't kind of make it, cut it, so they get a 3rd manager by the start of next season. Again, that doesn't seem notable or mad to me. No, definitely notable. Probably not mad. So I think I'm going down on a little bit of limb here. I think Manchester City finished 3rd this season. I don't think that they finished within the top 2. Reason being is that, again, Rodri's gone for the rest of the season. That's locked, signed, sealed, delivered. In terms of regular injuries, Kevin De Bruyne has missed several games already. They struggled to beat a Fulham squad, who are not the greatest in my opinion. And there are clear weaknesses now in this team and clear chinks in the armor. In addition, they have also, in terms of the injury bug, Erling Haaland has that tendency to get injured for long spells. He did it last season. He did plenty of his time in Dortmund. His first season in the Premier League, he was apparently quite healthy. But there's quite a potential for him to miss a large chunk of time. And like I said, Kevin De Bruyne has already missed some. And as he's getting older, he may miss more. This is more so, I guess, if you were to ask, a bet on Liverpool, actually, where they are going through their toughest stretch starting now. But all the signs have been pointing to that. They have been quite good. In terms of the quality in the final third, I think they're on par with the teams around them. I more so, I guess, have a belief in their midfield and what they're structurally being able to do, and they should be the ones actually pushing Arsenal for the title versus Manchester City. So that would be my Noah match it. Manchester City not finishing in the top 2.
Ooh, that is a great shout because I think if you were to give us a free hit for a bet, maybe I think all 3 of us would choose Man City to finish in the top 2 if you were to give it today. But considering what's happened, I don't really, and I was kind of thinking about that too. Maybe definitely the possibility of them not winning it this year, but even falling further behind and maybe coming 3rd or 4th in Premier League. That's going to be quite the shakeup in the league. Moving forward to the relegated teams, I guess I'll just read mine out, and then Mac, I'll give you the opportunity to give us yours, and then Gio. My 3 teams to get relegated.
Do you want to? Here's a thought. I'm just going to throw it out there. Do you want to just say? I think we're going to probably all agree on 2 of the teams. So
Fair.
Do you want to do it that way? Do we all have this team, and then maybe we just talk individually about the teams that maybe that we disagree on?
Yeah. Do we all have Southampton getting relegated this season?
Absolutely.
Absolutely is crazy. But do we also have Ipswich Town getting relegated?
Absolutely.
I do not.
Oh,
okay. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. So Mac and I, we have two, and then my last team was actually Wolves. Do I have anyone else in
I
agreement
have
on
Wolves
that?
as well.
I have Wolves as well.
Okay,
Okay.
well then, I think Gio, do you want to talk us through your last team that you think will get relegated and why? Of course, I don't think that's Leicester because I think that's the other team that came up this season. But of course, that's your dark horse team. What are your thoughts, Gio?
Yes, I think this could have fallen to the mad shit as well. I think
Oh no.
inevitably, whether one way, whether it be poor play, whether it be out of their hands, Everton is getting relegated. I just don't think
Okay.
they have the right who. I think obviously Sean Dyche can obviously play a very defensive game and get a draw, and a very gritty game and get a draw. But I don't think they'll get enough of that this season. And again, it could be because of poor play, not being good enough, not getting enough points, but it could be them getting enough points, but getting those points stripped from them. They will be relegated alongside Southampton and Wolves.
Very, very big possibility. Of course, we've seen that already, and it may be that's kind of what they need to push them on and perform better in the league. Of course, we saw that last season where, in multiple seasons where Everton are not doing that well, but they just scraped by. But last season they were definitely not doing so well. They got hit with the ban, and then Sean Dyche worked magic. So that's a great shout, Gio. Mac, of course. My thinking here is Southampton, Ipswich. Just their squads are not good enough in the Premier League this season. Whether they are good enough, I know they have a couple of players each team that can cut it at a Premier League team, but I think they just lack compared to the quality in and around the Premier League. They just lack that extra cutting factor to stay up the season. The Wolves squad for me is screaming that itself. Looking at the squad, looking at all the changeover, I'm not really liking their chances. Of course, they've had a crazy run to start the season. Haven't had a win yet. Along with it's along with Ipswich, I believe, Southampton, and I think Crystal Palace as well. So that's really my point of view. What about you? Give us your thinking about the three teams that you think are getting relegated.
I think, again, we talked about Southampton for sure going down, no question about that. I think Gio also agreed on Wolves. I think they're just another team bereft of quality, especially in the final third, to be able to create enough chances. The losing of Petro Neto, I thought it was a huge loss for them, and something that they haven't really replaced in their squad in terms of like a creative fulcrum, to be able to create opportunities for themselves, their teammates. So it's just pure quality play across the board for both those teams. The disagreement I would go with, I guess, on Gio is where I think both teams, Ipswich Town with Kieran McKenna, a lot of people have picked him as a manager to move on to a new job in the near future. And I think Dyche, of course, someone I would follow. It seems like a manager that people would run through a brick wall for. I think they both have quality there. The difference would be the separation is where Ipswich underlying numbers very much scare me in terms of they have the lowest expected goals this season and the most expected goals against. So the fact that they're not already in last place or towards the bottom of the table, it's not a great look. So their underlying numbers do worry me. They have had a tough start. I think they played back-to-back games against Liverpool and then Manchester City. So that could be part of the factor for where they've had a tougher start to the season in comparison to maybe the other teams that could be relegated. But similar to them, other than, and I understand Delap has had a great start to the season himself, scoring, I think, so far 4 goals across 7 games. So it's a great return from any striker. But for me, again, it's very similar. It's not too much splitting hairs. And I think that if based off the rest of the team, the underlying numbers, I'd be worried about them staying up. So that's my reasoning for those 3 teams.
Okay, and so our last category before we take a break is first manager to get sacked. I'm going to toss it to you, Mac, to give us your take on who you think the first manager to get sacked, because I don't think we've had a sacking so far. Who's up next, Mac?
Okay, I don't. Okay, see. Who do I want to get sacked, or who do I not want to get sacked? This is a very tough decision. I think this for me should be a shoe-in. To be honest, on what I would do if I'm the club owner of the club, and it would be Gary O'Neill. I think for Wolves, what's happened as of right now, they're last place. It has not been looking good. I think maybe a change of voice. I understand that they've recently changed voices. Gary O'Neill has not been the manager for quite a long time at Wolves. I think he was hired, I think at the beginning of last season, so it's not as if he's been there for quite some time. But I think they need an adjustment just to get any hope out, because 1 point return thus far in the season, it's not been great. I think the expected points, if based off their chances that they created and chances that they conceded, they should have been about around 5 points. Is that too different from where they are now right now? No, they would still be close to the relegation battle. So I think there needs to be a drastic change up there, and you don't want the season to get away from you and you're too far behind where you don't have enough time to catch up. So I think a change now for them would be needed.
I don't disagree with that. The only thing I would say is I think they've had a really tough start to the season. They've already faced Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle, Liverpool, and Aston Villa in the first 7 games, and so it's tough to say that it's all up to the manager. Though definitely the results and the goals conceded is alarming for those fans. So I definitely see that. For me, I guess similar to your thinking, one of the teams that I think will get relegated is Southampton, and I think Russell Martin. I think he was hired last or 2 seasons ago, I think, before Southampton, or as they got relegated, something around that time, did quite well to bring them up. But I think they're just not, with them being in the Premier League, I don't think he's going to get the time that Vincent Kompany did. Of course, he got the whole season, even though he eventually got relegated. They stayed on and kept with his philosophy. I think for Southampton, who have been up in the Premier League before, if they think things are not going the right way with him, they might have to part ways with him and find someone who can, very much like Sean Dyche, try to get as many points as possible, stay up in the Premier League, and then regroup after the season's done. Gio, do you have anyone different for your first manager that gets sacked?
Okay, just a question for you boys. Do you guys want who I want to get fired first, or who I think will get fired first?
Who your first manager gets sacked?
Okay. It's gonna be Oliver Glasner. It's gonna be tough for him because obviously losing all that firepower with Michael Olise, and you see Olise balling out at Bayern Munich, and you're like, damn, imagine we still had that. All right. So I think just because of the lack of firepower, teams just know how to negate their squad. They only have so many weapons, and if you kind of isolate these players a little more, it's not easy to get a draw. And he's going to be losing points week after week if they can't score either. Even their game against Man United, they missed a lot of easy chances. Yes, they had chances, but they just weren't clinical enough. And I think Glasner is going to feel a little hard done because obviously the lack of activity they had in the window to replace Olise. But,
Eddie Nketiah.
Hey, that's your guy. That's your guy. Number 14 for Arsenal. The only number 14 for Arsenal I know. But hey, I do think, he's going to feel a little hard done, but it is what it is. It is business. They're going to bring in someone new possibly because I think they're going to be in and out of the relegation zone, and they're going to feel a little pressure to make a move. It's not his fault because obviously the players have to put the ball in the back of the net, and they've struggled to do so.
Yeah, it's really tough. I think I read somewhere that they're the team that had the biggest drop off in terms of the form that they had going into the last couple games last season to the beginning of this season, and you can't change the squad at any point now. You most likely will have to change the manager. So I definitely see where you're coming from there, Gio. Let's take a quick break here, boys. We'll come back discussing our predictions for the top 6 for the rest of the Premier League season, and then we'll talk about the Champions League as well. So stay with us, guys. Welcome back to Us Footy, guys. We are going to continue our podcast now, predicting how the Premier League table will finish, and that's from 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and of course the champions. I'm going to go first, then I'll toss it to you, Gio, and then Mac will go last. In 6th place, I have Spurs. I have Spurs in 6th. I don't know why. I think they're going to eventually pull through. They have enough quality in the end to pull through. And again, Aston Villa, I think they're gonna drop off later on, especially in the middle of the season. So that's my pick for sixth place right now. What do you think, Gio?
Um, yeah, I hate the pick, because that would mean above Man United. So, in sixth, I actually have Newcastle United. I think they would feel a little hard done with the Everton loss. Obviously Anthony Gordon missed that penalty. It's very clear that they are missing Isak a lot up there. So once I think Isak gets back and he's a little healthier, I think having that extra firepower will help. I think they'll be looking to add as well, add a little bit more depth. So I think once it's all said and done, I think they'll be at sixth. Will they be happy at sixth? Not necessarily, but I think they will finish sixth.
Sorry, my apologies. My sixth place team is actually Villa. I actually have Spurs on fifth, which I'll touch on later. And that's my hot take. But Mac, give us your sixth place team.
So I actually have Aston Villa as my sixth place team. I think that they'll finish in sixth place. It'll be very interesting to see. Again, I do agree with a lot of both of what you're saying, but I think they have enough quality to do enough. And more so, actually, this is my bet against a lot of the other traditional Big Six teams, where I actually have at least two of them outside the Big Six, the top six on the table for me. Where I think that this is going to be a much more level playing field of a season. So even though Aston Villa may not be as good as last season, I think they'll be good enough to finish sixth.
That's a great shot. Just going back to Gio there, and I'll toss it to you to give us your fifth place team. Yeah, Newcastle, I was looking into them as well. They don't have any European commitment, and they look like they're slowly getting the players back. And so as long as Isak is back and firing, he's going to be a big help. Anthony Gordon and Harvey Barnes, big threats. And of course, Tonali coming back. He didn't look amazing against Everton, but I think he has the experience and quality to eventually get up to speed and partner Guimaraes as a great duo in that midfield. So I do see that. But Gio, what is your prediction for the team finishing in fifth for the Premier League?
Fifth place, I think I talked about it. I think it is going to be Chelsea Football Club. I think they slowly starting to click. They're slowly finding their key core starting 11. Obviously Cole Palmer, talk of the town, getting some crazy talks about who he's better than after just a brief stint at Chelsea, which is kind of crazy to me. But I think he will continue to have a quite decent of a season. I think Chelsea are slowly starting to click. But I think through the long run, I think they will win enough games to put them, back where they're more used to, more comfortable, in and around that sixth spot. The traditional top six.
Okay, Mac, I'll toss it to you for your team finishing in fifth.
Fifth place, I actually have Newcastle. I think this season for them right now, thus far, has been a great reflection on the squad that they have, because it's not just Alexander Isak. They're also missing Callum Wilson, who is a quality striker in and of his own right. So I think when they do come back a little bit healthier, and the most backhanded compliment of a team, they only play really in one competition this season. So they're going to go all out for the Premier League. And I think this is a team where, yes, they had that stint in the group stage last season in the Champions League, but it's only made them salivate for it a little bit more. And with the higher ups willing to kind of invest in the club from a bottom up position, I think it's going to be imperative for this team to finish in or as close to a Champions League position as possible. So I think they'll just be knocking on that door. So I can, for me, they were flip-flopping between my fourth and fifth place team, but I'm going to slide them in comfortably for fifth place right now, because as of current date, they have a little bit more injuries to deal with, so it might take them a little bit of time to get up to speed.
Yeah, very much with what already Gio mentioned. I do like them finishing in and around that top six position. I just think that for me, and this is kind of going into my fifth place team, that's Spurs. I just feel like they can perform at a certain level. Going in week out, they'll give you, Eddie Howe will give you a specific, maybe a 7 out of 10. Those players most of the time will give you a 7 out of 10, but it's the injuries and the piling on from last season. I don't think they were able to strengthen the squad as much as they wanted to this season. So that's why I've kind of left them out. And that's why, again, even though Spurs have European commitments, I just think and just gonna give us something to. He's gonna entertain us, and Spurs is gonna be that entertaining team where they might have games like Brighton against Brighton where they are leading 2-0 at halftime and concede 3 goals. But they also did have that run of I think like 6 games back to back wins, and if they can pull it together and go on another run like that and keep it up, I do see them finishing in that 5th position, and that's why I have them there. My 4th place team, and that's Gio's 5th place team. I think Chelsea are going to finish in the top 4. And that's of course down to one player, no. Of course, Cole Palmer FC. He's continuing to prove me wrong. A big hater and doubter. So long it may continue. Chelsea, as long as you have Cole Palmer, that's all you need, and he'll bring you back Champions League positions. Mac, who do you have? I think you maybe kind of gave us the answer there for the 4th place team. What do you think?
I'm on board with your Chelsea take. I think Chelsea, again, just as you, would finish 4th place. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how well and how consistent they are. I think that this team still has a lot of weakness at the back and in goalkeeping, which is the reason why I wouldn't push them further up the table. And I think there is if you were to ask me to kind of, what's the terminology I'm looking for? Like bracket it up. If I tier, if I were to put it into different tiers, they aren't in the top inner circle of contenders, as we've discussed before. They're in that rung below, where I think they have just as much offensive talent. If you just look at the names on paper, will the manager Maresca do a good enough job to put them in the right spots? So far, so good. But defensively and in goalkeeping, there's still too many questions and too many red flags there for them to be close. But I think they are in a position by the end of the season to be back in the Champions League for next season, which is would be a huge success for Chelsea. So as of right now, I have Aston Villa, Newcastle, and Chelsea.
Okay, Gio, give us your team that's finishing in the last Champions League position next season.
It is Aston Villa. I know Mac put him a little lower. I know you guys have him a little lower, but I just think they are gonna get more dangerous as it goes. I think Duran, obviously, almost that super sub right now. He's riding on a high, and then teams. I'm not gonna say they're too worried yet, but I know their attack is on a lot of teams' radar, and I think once they get a little bit more cohesive, because that game against United where they drew, I just think they lacked a little bit of cohesiveness. I think there are a lot of times where the slight decision making caused them to miss or that one wrong pass. They were one pass away from obviously scoring 2-3 goals on United. So I think the chemistry just needs to continue to build, but I think they have the quality with their success, or even not so much their success in the Champions League will only build their confidence. Them being in the Champions League was already something we didn't really expect. So Aston Villa and Aston Villa fans will continue cheering, and the Villa fans will feel, the enjoyment of playing, whether they lose in the Champions League, and they'll regain their focus back in the Premier League as well.
Yeah, very excited for the upcoming. Well, they've started quite well already in the Champions League, Aston Villa, so hopefully they can continue that. Let's go with then the team that's finishing in third. I'm gonna toss it to you first, Mac. Maybe you have something controversial for us. Who do you think is going to finish third this season?
As I stated earlier, spoiler alert, it was Manchester City. I have them finishing in 3rd place this season, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it might be notable mad shit, but I don't know. Do you know what the saying is, like, the easiest way to lie is to believe in a lie? I think I've gotten to that point with how I think Manchester City will perform this season. Is that there's a lot of questions. Who knows? I think a fun take, as we talked about in kind of a breakdown between the podcasts, is where what if, based off of what happens in terms of the course, that they even get relegated? So they might not finish in the top 6 at all. Is that too much to hope for? Probably. But in regards to the performance on the pitch, with the Rodri injury, the likelihood of more injuries, their lack of replacements, I think unless this squad is heavily invested in January, which only helps in the Premier League, they cannot be used in the Champions League, any signings that they pick up then. This squad, I think, is in a little bit of trouble. They're still in the top tier in terms of who's the likeliest to win. Would I be surprised if they win the Premier League? No. But if you were to ask me what I think will happen for the rest of the season as of today, from what we've seen thus far, I think they finished third.
Ooh, that is a very, very strong and early kind of twist in our predictions. I will toss it to you now, then, Gio. Third place for this to finish the season. Who do you have?
Third place, I think I was almost teetering this as well. But Max said it. He took the words right out of my mouth. I think they're gonna struggle without Rodri. They're gonna look to add, but based on Pep's system, he doesn't add stars immediately. He kind of builds them up to be system players. And again, I talked about it last week. They're gonna have to rely on KDB not getting injured late into the season. They're gonna have to rely on Kovacic being a goal contributor. They're gonna rely on Ilkay Gundogan, an aging Ilkay Gundogan at that, an aging Bernardo Silva at that, to really be the maestros in the midfield. Phil Foden hasn't really hit his potential yet. I know all these things can change with Phil Foden being the talent that he is, but I don't think there has been a Man City season-winning roster where there has been so many question marks. Again, do we believe that they could still go out there and do it? Absolutely, but it's gonna have to be everything in their favor. So, with that being said, I think even with a signing in the winter window, in the January window, Man City are likely going to finish third.
Oof. Well, that is a very well. Maybe I was in the wrong, and I thought that was a controversial take. Clearly, it is not. And so, I guess my controversial take is that Liverpool are going to finish third in the Premier League this season. Great start to the season, of course, but similar to Aston Villa, Champions League is going to come in. Already injuries with Alisson are going to affect this team in the short term. Who knows what will happen in the medium and long term throughout the season with the run of run of fixtures that are coming up for Liverpool. Very, very tough there. Expect that to sort of the opposite of bell curve, where it kind of flattens out the actual points that you should be getting against the top teams. That's going to be a big hit for Liverpool, I think. And Arne Slot, I don't know his previous experience in the Netherlands, but I do think this is a new challenge that he's maybe not necessarily seen before. So I wouldn't blame him if he's unable to finish in the top two, because again, Man City and Arsenal are such great squads, and have done this over the last two seasons. So that's why I have them in third there. Then let me toss it to you guys. My team's finishing in second, and that's why I said it's controversial. It's Arsenal, because we've already given, I think, Arsenal their flowers. I think it's just that Man City, them being champions, I don't necessarily see anything changing. I know that you guys already highlighted some of their concerns with injuries, and it looks like slowly teams are, it's weird to say, figuring out how to play against City. But I just think Pep is such a sicko that he's going to figure something out. And maybe he already has the antidote to this in his back pocket that he's going to eventually roll out, like how he did a couple seasons ago, inserting John Stones into that holding midfield position. I think he, in a game where I think he's the greatest manager and greatest thinker of all time, and with regards to football, I think he's already got it figured out, and it's for me essentially to have him prove me wrong, and that's why I have Man City essentially finishing first, and then Arsenal finishing second. Then toss it to you, Gio, before I'll toss it to you, Mac, and then we'll wrap up this part and then head over to the Champions League. What do you think, Gio?
I think finishing second is Arsenal. I think they just cannot crack the code. They're gonna make it deeper in the Champions League. They're gonna be in the obviously Premier League talks in title contention, but I just think the the spotlight of it all and making that deep run and have these people talk again. Kind of how Liverpool, had that talk last year about, potentially winning a treble. Just having that treble and just potentially sending Klopp off the right way is similar to what's gonna happen with Arsenal. I think is that they're gonna be like, oh, okay, they're in competition for everything. They're gonna go from not winning anything to sweeping the board because obviously they're going to take advantage of Man City's misses. They're going to take advantage of, Liverpool's tough schedule. And I think because Liverpool is expected to almost fumble, again, they have been flying under the radar, much like they flew under the radar last year and almost squeezed away with and almost ran away with the title. But I think this year, they're going to do it. They're going to do it, and Ray's going to be like, I didn't expect it, but hey, I'm gonna enjoy it.
If it does happen, I will definitely enjoy it. But Mac, if I can be so bold to predict, you have a different opinion. Give us your reasons why.
I'm on the same page as Gio. Let's fucking go down. I'm just kidding. But, I was gonna tease that and joke that, saying that second place was gonna be Arsenal, and then completely flip. But Gio was actually serious. So for a second there, I'm like, wait, did he forget about Liverpool and put Man United first? I don't know. Anything's possible. But no. For me, again, I think Liverpool. It is a spicy take that I think Manchester City finished third. They very well could finish second. I think to be honest, at one point, I don't know if it was during the podcast or if I was talking individually to you, Bray, where these three teams, given the injuries to Manchester City, there's realistic possibility for any of them to finish in the top. For me, right now, the favorites are Arsenal, because if you look at the squad, even how well they're performing without Martin Odegaard, their captain, I think they're kind of creative fulcrum in a lot of ways, and I would argue their best offensive player. I know some people may argue Saka, and some people may even say he may be their best player. But it's for me, I think they're clearly 1A in the title race, with Liverpool and City being just a little bit below them. And the only reason why I have Liverpool second, like I said, is where, as of right now, they still currently are the healthiest full team. And thus far this season, they have looked the best team. Will that continue on? Probably not, because they're going to face tougher competition, but I think they'll still perform well enough above City to finish in that second place. So for me, again, it's the top three are Manchester City, Liverpool, and then finally, once again, for the second year in a row, I'm predicting Arsenal to win the Premier League, which in all likelihood, what does that mean? They won't win. Okay, so it's all good up in the hood. Eventually someone else will win, that's fine. But I really like, and I do agree with a lot of what you're saying, right, in terms of it being Man City again. It's like at one point with I think it was like LeBron James reaching the NBA Finals. Until he doesn't reach the NBA Finals at one point in his career, just keep going. Who am I to say it's going to stop? It's at that point of level of greatness, right? Where I will be the last person to bet on them succeeding. Until now, let's go. It's going to be Arsenal first place.
Yes, exactly. So, again, you've heard differing opinions from a lot of us here. We'll definitely keep an eye on how that plays out, and of course, maybe come back to this point at the end of the season. But let's quickly wrap it up with a quick Champions League corner. I'm gonna give it to everyone just to pick three teams: a dark horse team, a team that comes close but just fails the last hurdle. In brackets, I put here potential finalists, and then who wins it. I'm gonna give it to you guys first. My dark horse team. My dark horse team is gonna be a team that recently just made it to the Champions League this season, and that's Bayer Leverkusen. Mac, I'm gonna take a page out of your book from last time we predicted game week 2 of the Champions League. Leverkusen did get the win against Milan, and 5 goals, 4-0 against so far in the Champions League. With the squad playing under Xabi Alonso, they are definitely going to be a team that tries to get all the way, and I think they might push it all the way. Just don't necessarily think they have the X factor to win the whole competition, but they're definitely a fun team for me to watch. And I think all neutrals, they'll be watching how they perform. A team that I think will come close, potential finalist, it's actually going to be Arsenal. They have all the tools in the belt. I know we just talked about how good they are. Even Gio said a team that has recently come back into the Champions League, but is already I think if you look at the betting odds, one of the favorites to go all the way, or at least to go almost all the way. I think they're definitely potential finalists because they have all that they need. It's just the experience that I think may let them down towards the end. And then, of course, finally, I guess very much in keeping with my predictions, I think City are the best team in the world currently and the best team to win it. This year, I'm just not convinced by Real Madrid, even though I think they're gonna be a constant in the Champions League. I don't know, with this new Mbappe Vinny situation, Jude Bellingham, kind of his PR hasn't gone as crazy as it did last season. I just don't see them getting there, which could be proved wrong. But until I see it, I'm just gonna have to have the teams finishing in first and second place in the Premier League as the finalists. I'm gonna toss it to you first, Mac, and then we'll finish it off with Gio. Give us your 3 teams back.
So a dark horse team, I don't know if this is really fair to say that they're a dark horse team considering that they were a finalist last year. But I think Borussia Dortmund still have quite the potential to be able to make it deep into this competition, given the new league structure where you are getting a little bit more games out. This team right now, they're still quite young in terms of what they generally have done. They haven't really featured Mats Hummels thus far this year. That's been a big adjustment in terms of their back line, and Ian Maatsen, of course, going back to Chelsea and then to Aston Villa. But I think they still have a lot of quality across their team. Adeyemi is a star. Julian Brandt is a quality player. I think that they, even their striker position, his name escapes me, the German striker, he went to West Ham.
Füllkrug.
Yeah, Füllkrug, yes. So they've had a lot of adjustment in their squad, but I think that they still have enough talent to, and when I say make it far, I would say I think would not be surprised if they finish in the top 8, closer to that 7-8 range, and maybe make the chance at maybe a quarterfinals. But this season, of course, I don't think they'll reach the finals, but they would go further than I think some people may anticipate. In regards to potential finalist, I'm 100. So actually, my hot take for the Champions League is I don't think Manchester City or Real Madrid are going to make the finals, let alone win, because I think both teams are under a lot of adjustments, injuries, changes, where it might be too soon, too fast. Because Real Madrid, I think, in terms of overall quality, in terms of who is healthy today, probably the best team in the world. Given that Man City are suffering a little bit of injuries, if they were fully healthy, I would argue Manchester City. And for me, it would be clearly Man City to win the Champions League. I think considering those adjustments, those changes, it goes down to the next tier below those 2 teams. And what are the odds on favorite below? Who do you think is the third favorite to win the Champions League? It's of course Arsenal, but I'm not. I think of me going into this podcast saying that I think Arsenal is going to win the Premier League and the Champions League, I think that's a little bit greedy. I'm not that type of person. I do believe in a little bit of karma potentially, so I think that there would be a finalist. But then the team I think would actually go on to end up winning it had a huge disappointment last season because they didn't pick up anything. And their star striker needs something, and that's of course with Bayern Munich. I think under Vincent Kompany, they have as well. They have their questions, but in terms of an attacking, from a goal scoring sense of attacking threat, considering where they are right now, and then I think that they're up there with City and Real Madrid. The question again for me is in terms of the center half position, how well they are good defensively in that area. Is Neuer still a good enough goalkeeper at his current age to continue to keep doing it? I think so. But for me, I think the final, I would not be surprised if we see Arsenal Bayern Munich and Bayern Munich beats Arsenal in the final.
Ooh, a repeat of I think might have been like the quarterfinals of last season in Champions League. Well, Gio, what are your thoughts on dark horse team, finalist, and of course the champions for the Champions League this season?
Okay, dark horse team. Let's start with dark horse team, and my dark horse team is Juventus. I think I know in Champions League they've already conceded 3 goals, but they don't concede a lot of goals. Again, they are another team that I think does fly under the radar a lot of times now because they've had a lot of unsuccessful years back to back to back, and they're currently in almost like a rebuild mode. But that being said, I love teams who fly under the radar, and they're gonna play well. They play quite sound defensively, and I think playing in the Champions League, teams are going to try to look and open play more. Teams are a little bit more careful, and they're going to benefit off that. Because I think, as they go later into the games, I think they have slightly more attacking edge than some of these teams in the Champions League. Now that the Champions League is, expanded, they definitely have some more talent than some of these teams. So if it were to go deeper later into the game, as they sit back, I think, they have more than enough power to, overcome a lot of these oppositions that they will come up against. In terms of my team that comes close is Dortmund. Dortmund comes back. Dortmund again, flying. They love the Champions League. Let's just put it that way. They love the Champions League. Yes, they got, close last year. But I think this year they are more so not considering themselves dark horses more so, but they're more relishing the moment. I think they're just playing more freely, more open. Adeyemi is, a menace. But, I think they have enough firepower. Again, the Champions League is where they want to be and where they thrive, and they will cook. But who do I think will win it? It actually could argue it.
Sorry, I think your mic cut out there.
Oh, sorry. It arguably is a dark horse team as well, but who I think will win is actually Bayern Munich. A team that, again, has seen their ups and downs the last few seasons. But I think the way they are, not to say that their defense is fantastic, but I think their offense is damn near so amazing that, teams are going to struggle to defend. Even the best teams are going to struggle to defend because they have so much. They have options. They have speed. They have, aerial threat. They have, they have Harry Kane. They have Michael Olise. All these things that factor in. And the saying goes, a great defense is a strong offense. So, they're gonna play well. So, if you do like goals, tune into Bayern Munich games.
All right. Well, you heard it here. Again, our co-hosts Gio and Mac are agreeing on another category. So we'll definitely keep an eye on how Bayern Munich do for the rest of the Champions League season. This concludes our podcast for today, guys. If you guys like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. That's at @house_of_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, get in touch with us via email as well. houseoffooty@hotmail.com is our email. The next time you hear from us will be later next week when we go back and preview the next match week of the Premier League. But until then, thank you, Mac, for joining us.
I lied. Arsenal are going to win the Champions League as well.
Thank you, Gio.
Arsenal are bottlers.
I'm disappointed that none of you picked Liverpool as a dark horse team for the Champions League. So I will not be seeing you guys for the rest of the week, but I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.